Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be talking about a story that you might think you already know, The Goose Girl by the Brothers Grimm. But we're going to kind of dig a little deeper than just a surface reading, kind of try to figure out why the story is more than just a happily ever after.
Yeah, fairy tales, they're so great because they work on these different levels. And even though the plot might seem really simple, there's a lot of symbolism there. There's social commentary and, all this deeper meaning.
Right. So, okay, let's start right at the beginning. The queen is dying, and she gives her daughter 3 drops of her blood in this cloth. Kind of a strange gift. What do you think she's trying to do there?
Yeah, it's not your typical, goodbye present. I mean, blood is often a symbol for life force. So maybe she's trying to give her daughter some of her own strength, even though she's, not going to be around anymore. It's almost like a last desperate attempt to protect her daughter, but she can't physically be there anymore.
Yeah, she's going to need it. The maid, who is supposed to protect her, shows her true colors pretty quickly. And it's interesting how the maid isn't just ambitious. She wants to completely erase the princess. Like, what drives that need, do you think?
You're right. It goes way beyond ambition. It's almost like she needs to prove that she's better than the princess by destroying her completely. There's some deep insecurity there. Like, she has to eliminate the competition to prove her own worth.
And then there's Falada, the talking horse.
Mm.
And the maid makes the princess promise to keep him quiet. Why is that silencing so important?
Well, Falada represents truth and loyalty. And those are 2 things that the maid is trying to get rid of.
Mm.
She can't really control the princess while Falada is there to tell the truth. It really shows how dangerous silence can be and how important it is to speak up even when it's hard.
Yeah, even though the princess loses everything, she still holds on to her dignity. She sings to Falada, and she keeps this little charm that reminds her of home. It's like these small things mean so much.
Right? Think about it. She's been ripped from her life and forced to live a lie. It's amazing that she doesn't give up completely. These little acts are how she stays connected to her past, to who she really is. It just shows how much we all need to hold on to ourselves, even when everything else is gone.
But it seems like her only real confidant is this iron stove, stuck in the kitchen with no one to hear her. What's with that? Why the
Oh,
stove?
it's not random at all. The stove is a symbol of home and hearth. Those are the things that have been stolen from her. But it also shows how trapped she is. Literally trapped. Her voice can't be heard.
Right, and then there's the old king. He seems to see how good the princess is, but he doesn't notice how she's being treated. Do you think he just doesn't want to see it? Or is it something else?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we tend to trust people in power, even when they're wrong. Maybe he just assumes everything is fine because that's easier than facing the truth. He doesn't question what's right in front of him.
And when the truth does come out, the false bride gets a pretty gruesome ending. They roll her through the streets in a barrel with nails in it. Is that justice, or is that something else?
We have to remember the time period. When the Grimms were collecting these stories, things were pretty brutal. Punishments were meant to scare people and entertain them, too.
So they weren't exactly trying to be nice, but they were showing how things really were back then. There's also this idea of karma in there, though, right? Like the punishment fits the crime perfectly.
Absolutely. There's this sense of balance being restored, not just for the princess, but for everyone. And it would have been really satisfying for the audience at the time. They believe that you get what you deserve, and seeing that play out would have felt necessary.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Goose Girl. We left off talking about the ending and how the false bride gets what she deserves.
Yeah, that was intense. It made me think about the characters, though. Like, what makes someone betray someone else like that? And how does the princess stay strong after all that? That's a great question. I mean, on the surface, it seems like the maid is just ambitious. She wants the prince and the princess's life.
Right, but it feels like there's something more. Like maybe she's not just jealous, she actually hates the princess for having those things.
You're right on the money. She wants to destroy her, not just replace her. It's like she's trying to make herself feel better by making the princess feel worse. All that humiliation, it's just messed up.
It really is. But what about the princess? I mean, she goes through betrayal, loses everything, is forced to work like a servant. That's got to leave a mark.
Trauma like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't just disappear. She might be silent and not speaking up because she's trying to protect herself. I mean, think about it. She trusted the maid and got betrayed. So why would she trust anyone else?
That's true. And no one around her really sees her. The king is clueless, and the goose boy's annoying. She's all alone.
Exactly. Which makes her connection to Falada even more important. That horse, even though he's dead, is the only one who knows what she's going through.
Oh, that's so sad. It's like she's losing all her support, one by one. But why talk to Falada's head at all? She promised not to reveal herself. It's like she's risking everything.
Because she needs to talk to someone, to be heard, even if it's just a horse's head. She's been holding everything in for so long, so even speaking the truth in secret, it's a way of fighting back.
Yeah, it's not just any head, though, right? It's magical. Like she's connecting with her old life, the one that was stolen from her.
Yes, she's reminding herself of who she really is, even though everyone's telling her she's nothing. She's getting stronger from that connection.
This story says a lot about how women were treated back then. What do you see in the Goose Girl that shows what people were worried about at the time?
Well, it's all about female power, or really the lack of it. You have the princess. She's good and kind, but totally helpless. And the maid, she's all about power and uses any means to get it.
And it's the king, an older man, who actually fixes things. It's like the women are just pawns in a game that men are playing.
There's definitely that going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the princess isn't just sitting around waiting. She finds ways to fight back, to keep her dignity. And in the end, it's her goodness that saves her.
That's a good point. She's not waiting for a prince. She's making her own destiny, even if it's in small ways. So maybe it's not just about restrictions, but about how women can find strength to overcome them.
Exactly. And that's still relevant today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have evil maids or talking horses, but we all face things that try to shut us up.
Totally. It's like a reminder that even when things are bad, there's always hope. A way to be yourself again.
And those little sparks of hope can come from anywhere. A song, a memory, even a talking horse head.
Well, maybe not that last one, haha. But I get what you're saying. We've talked about a lot, but there's one more thing. Is the princess just unlucky? Or does she make her own choices? It's like fate versus free will.
Ooh, that's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
We need a whole other deep dive for that one. Let's talk about it in part 3.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our Goose Girl deep dive. And we're getting into some big ideas here. Like you said, fate versus free will. Is the princess just a victim, or does she make her own choices?
Yeah, that's a question you see a lot in these old stories. Are we really in control, or is everything already decided?
Well, in the Goose Girl, it does seem like she's destined for certain things. I mean, she's born a princess, right? And this 3 drops of blood, it's like her mom is trying to protect her even after she's gone.
Yeah, like she's trying to keep her safe, make sure she ends up where she's supposed to be. But then the maid comes along and messes everything up. The princess is taken away from her life. It's almost like she can't escape what's happening to her.
But even then, she still does things to fight back, like talking to Falada, or holding on to that charm from home, even telling her secrets to the stove. It's not like she's just giving up.
You got it. She's holding on to who she is. She's trapped, but she won't let them break her.
Yeah.
And that's what saves her in the end, that inner strength.
I never thought of it like that. It's not just luck that the king overhears her. She chose to speak up. Even though it was risky, she had to trust that someone would hear her.
Right. It shows that we do have choices. Things happen, but we can react to them. We can make decisions. It's like fate gives us the ingredients, but we decide what kind of cake to bake.
I like that. Okay, so going back to what you said before about those little sparks of hope, what if the real happy ending isn't about marrying a prince or getting a kingdom back? What if it's about being brave enough to be yourself?
That's what makes these stories so powerful, right?
Yeah.
They show us that even when things are really hard, we can still be strong. We just have to remember who we are. And sometimes those reminders come from unexpected places.
Exactly. So maybe it's a song that makes you feel better, or a memory, or just spending time outside. Anything that helps you feel like yourself again. And it's never too late to make a change, to start making choices that feel right.
It all comes back to the Goose Girl. We all have a story. We all have a voice. Even if the path is hard, there's always a way to make things better, to make your own ending.
This has been an awesome deep dive. We talked about symbolism and psychology and how people saw the world back then. And this whole idea of fate versus free will, it's amazing how much is packed into this one story.
That's what I love about fairy tales. They seem simple, but they help us understand ourselves, our own lives. And they remind us that we can always change. We can always grow.
So as we finish up, think about this. Where do you see fate in your own life? And where do you make your own choices? Where do you find the courage to be you?
Don't forget you have a story to tell. And even when things feel uncertain, there's always hope. You can always write your own ending.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something amazing. Until then, keep asking questions and keep writing your story.